Frank Reich is the head coach again.
Not the retread coach I was expecting to be the first off the list for retread coaches.
I agree.
So that part of it surprised me. I was also surprised to learn that Frank Reich attended seminary school in Charlotte.
He was a pastor in Charlotte prior to 2007 before he took his first coaching gig.
Didn't realize that the tie was there to the city of Charlotte.
And as Armando Salguero wrote, he's going to need a lot of prayer with the quarterback situation he's inheriting. He went through 7 quarterbacks in Indianapolis from his 5 seasons as the Colts head coach. Had a winning record, of course, was fired mid-season, and has had time to get set up for his next gig. Turns out it's going to be with the Carolina Panthers, so we do have one job filled. And the question now is Steve Wilks, who did a very nice job as the interim head coach, where does he go from here? He's already a part of the Brian Flores lawsuit stemming from the Arizona Cardinals, and we talked about this from really from the jump whenever he was named the interim head coach. Carolina and David Tepper, I know that the locker room really liked Steve Wilks, the players. You can tell because of how they played for the interim head coach whenever we saw what happened with the coaching staff there and all the changes, the trade with McCaffrey. They played hard. They were competitive, even though the roster wasn't that great. And now Frank Reich inherits this team, and Steve Wilks, or we sit and wait to see what happens next and the response to the Panthers not going with a minority head coach who was the interim, who did a nice job, and instead going with Frank Reich as one of the 2 finalists after they interviewed Sean Payton, Chad, and that is who you're referring to as the retread coach that is still out there.
Yeah, I mean, how on earth are Panthers fans supposed to be excited about this? This guy was bad. In the end, he just got fired.
Very average, yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could point to, the quarterback issue, and he didn't elevate any of that.
You're right.
This retread phenomenon in the NFL and the lack of outside-the-box thinking, and I get it. There have been hires that are outside the box that have failed miserably. Hello, Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. I understand that. But this always leaning to the comfort level of, this guy's been a head coach in the league before, so he knows how to work it. I don't get it. I feel like there are 100 better candidates than Frank Reich for the Panthers. Good for Frank Reich. He seems like a great man. Seems like, a good guy to have in your organization in some way. But if I'm a Panthers fan today, you're going to have to really gin up some interest to me to make me excited about why the guy who just got fired in Indianapolis in midseason and now he's immediately hired by my franchise is somehow going to be the guy to lead this franchise to the next level.
He was 40-33-1 in his 5 seasons as the head coach with the Indianapolis Colts. And, again, 7 different quarterbacks. They have the 9th overall selection in the upcoming NFL draft.
Which could become the number 1 overall selection.
Yeah, it could. It could.
I've floated that out there. I for some reason, I see the Panthers, the team that may surprise and trade all the way up to number 1 to draft Bryce Young.
Yeah, absolutely. And, also keep in mind, they don't have currently a quarterback on the roster that was going to be under contract for next season. So they can have a lot of maneuvering at that position this offseason. Steve Wilks, I wonder where he goes now because of the defensive background. My guess would be the Atlanta Falcons because of the fact that they haven't made many hires with some of the coaches that have departed either due to retirement or due to the likelihood that they're going to be given the chance to upgrade from, like Charles London, their quarterback's coach, has a chance to be the offensive coordinator in Nashville. He's one of the guys that's talked with the Titans. So the Falcons, I think, have been waiting on all of these defensive coaches who are interviewing to try to decide if they're going to fill the role that way. Again, the lawsuit is going to be a big storyline now because a minority coach didn't get the job in Carolina despite doing a pretty good job as the interim head coach in a very bad situation where they traded away the top talent and still won some games.
Again, not excited if I'm a Panthers fan right now.
And, more excited with Wilks?
He's the first one.
Because those were the 2 finalists. Again.
Why are they the two finalists?
Well,
this is my thing with NFL owners. We're going to get to Jeff Saturday here soon. It's ridiculous that he's getting a second interview. Like, get out of your comfort level and go find some actual coaching candidates. Steve Wilks, to me, is about equal to Frank Reich in terms of head coaching with what he did with the Panthers late in the year. I would have been as excited, not excited equally with Steve Wilks or Frank Reich.
Well,
and it's not about just winning the press conference. I'm not saying just go try to make a splash with someone. I'm saying Frank Reich is the first guy off the board. Didn't see that one coming. I felt like Frank Reich may be the last coach hired because it didn't work out with the two other guys they were talking to. And they just fell back into it. Well, let's just bring a guy in who's done it before.
Well,
and who's a good guy.
The Sean Payton aspect of it, the Panthers did talk with him last Friday. They met with him in New York. And, there's now a report out that Sean Payton, the interview went fine in Denver, except for him not seeing certain things eye to eye with one member of the Broncos ownership group. And he's also asking for $20 to $25 million per year to be a head coach again. And you're going to have to trade for him. And the price tag is probably higher for the Panthers than it would be for any other team because they're in the same division as the Saints. So if not Sean Payton, the list of coaches, D'Amico Ryans sounds like he's going to end up in Houston or Denver. Beyond that, there's not like this long list of just up-and-coming stars that are no-brainers.
So the Panthers, what's interesting about the Panthers with Sean Payton, if you remember the podcast interview with his daughter, he brought up the Panthers. She was bringing up the odds of teams, and I remember he made a point to say, what about the Panthers? They don't have a coach right now. And I just found that interesting. Now, he could have been trolling knowing that he wasn't going to go there, so he's just putting that team out there to talk about it, but...
Well, he's wanting certain control.
Yeah, look, right? I think you could do worse than Frank Reich. I don't want to make it like Frank Reich is Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach.
Right.
But I'm just a little bit surprised. I was taken aback when I saw that Frank Reich is the first draft pick in terms of here is the head coach candidate that's off the board now for a team. And the first hire of the offseason surprised me.
Well, are we going to be really surprised if Jeff Saturday's named the head coach of the Colts?
No. At this point, I'll be surprised if he's not.
Yeah, because he's back in line for a second interview. There's a report that Irsay really wants to hire him. There is a petition out from Colts fans trying to get Irsay's attention to not hire Jeff Saturday as the full-time head coach in Indianapolis. And he's one of 7 coaches that are getting second interviews with Irsay. I don't know what they're doing in Indy, but this is Irsay. This is a perfect example of an owner meddling way too much. If you're keeping your GM around, let that guy go in and make this the football decision. Irsay, at the press conference with Saturday, started listing off all the hires that he had made from, general manager in the Hall of Fame. We have a head coach in the Hall of Fame, a quarterback in the Hall of Fame, and he's pointing to himself as making that hire. And all signs point to Jeff Saturday getting the gig.
It's almost like Shane Beamer defending his coordinator hire when he was listing everyone they talked to about it. Have you heard of Bill Belichick or Bill Parcells? Have you talked to these people? Jim Irsay, someone needs to do a welfare check on this guy. He's lost it. I don't understand. Long ago that it happened. You felt like he was better. But this drive your head through a brick wall. I am right on this. Everyone else is wrong. Jeff Saturday is the guy. Persistence with him is going to run this organization into the ground. I defended the outside-the-box thinking of Jeff Saturday when the hire was made, saying that you don't have to serve 25 years as an assistant coach in the NFL to be qualified to be an NFL head coach. Now, what I've seen from Jeff Saturday is someone who is not qualified to be an NFL head coach, based on his interim experience. How Jim Irsay has not seen that as the owner of the team is beyond me. And he's going to have to get over this love of Jeff Saturday if the Colts are going to move forward. And Hutton, you asked the question, how would you be surprised? I'd be surprised if it didn't happen at this point. This thing is trending. I know there's 7 other guys that are getting a second interview. The fact that Saturday is on that list, mark my word, this thing is trending towards Jim Irsay just loves Jeff Saturday, and he is going to be named the full-time head coach. And no player in that organization is going to respect it. The GM might leave when that happens. This is going to be disastrous for the Colts organization.
Well, and also Jordan Schultz reported that Irsay hasn't even really been sitting in the interviews to this point. So it's, his mind's made up. You've got Chris Ballard, who's conducting a lot of this.
So he jumps in now for the second
round. So they're bringing back 7, which again, 7 sounds like a first round of interviews. And you narrow it down to 2 or 3, which is what the Panthers did.
Maybe, just maybe. I'm trying to give Colts fans a little bit of hope here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, just maybe, Jim Irsay said, hey, we put Jeff in a tough spot. You go ahead and pick the 5 or 6 guys you want to bring back for a second interview to the GM. I'll come in the second round of the interviews, but let's give Jeff a spot in that second round regardless, because the difficult spot I put him in, and then we can conduct the full interview with him also. Maybe. I don't think that's the case. I think that Irsay really wants to hire Saturday, and it's going to happen. But maybe this is just another courtesy thing of, I brought him into this mess. It was a tough spot. He got ridiculed. I got ridiculed. Let's at least give him the second interview with me also. Maybe, but I don't think so.
There was another reporter on social media that put out that Irsay in the interview, not Irsay, Saturday in his interview said that he wanted control of his staff. And I'm thinking, of course. Like that's one of the things. Saturday's going to be in control of his staff. Like he'll be able to fire the current coaches that he doesn't want to keep around. But that's typical for any head coach. He should have full control over his staff.
Has there been a head coach that was hired that, I mean, I'm sure there's been a stipulation of this guy's been here a long time. We'd like to keep the defensive coordinator or someone in the organization that's under contract. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of a situation where an NFL head coach interviewed for a job and the owner said, oh, by the way, we're going to hire your staff for you. And it's going to be an arranged marriage with your staff. So, of course, to your point,
it's happened
Jeff
with general
Saturday
manager
would want control
interviews,
of it.
of course.
Yeah.
Mike Mularkey here, whenever they hired John Robinson.
I'm saying I'm sure it's happened with like one coach on one side of the ball, one coordinator.
Yeah.
Defense wasn't the problem. This guy's been here. We like him.
Well,
are you okay working with him? Offensive coordinator, same thing.
Mike McDaniel kept the defensive staff in Miami from the previous season.
And that may have been part of the interview process.
Could have been.
Are you okay working with this defensive staff?
And they're now cleaning house on that side, too, a year later. It is up on social at OutKick 360. Speaking of staffs, Bruce Arians reportedly not happy with the fact that 6 assistant coaches in Tampa Bay were fired, and 3 other assistants, take it however you want, retired. So a total of 9 from the staff. This is a year after Arians had the quote about how he's not going to have the opportunity to keep that staff together and ensure that they have full success after he retires, which is why he put Todd Bowles, handpicked him, put him in that position, why they kept everything together, and Arians was still around the team. Reportedly, he's not pleased with the way things went down throughout the season, but also immediately following the offseason where coaches were not retained. Arians, by the way, his contract is expired. He's free to go to any other organization. Technically, he's in retired status, I guess you could say. But, Chad, this is to me, this points to Brady. This points to the front office and ownership that are solid with Brady by all reports. And going back to last year, I'm saying we haven't heard any disagreement from that end of things. The speculation was Brady and Arians. And now that Leftwich and several other staff members are off the coaching roster, they definitely want to be in the mix to retain Brady for another season. And to me, this is a way to go about doing that.
Maybe, yeah, it seems like a way to appease Brady, something that he would want, that they're looking out for what would he want with this staff. The whole Bruce Arians thing is just so strange to me. The separation from head coach, he sort of, I guess, officially retired and then went to the front office, but he was
like
probably pushed out
or something. Yeah,
but he's a senior advisor that's on the sideline during the games. It's very visible, and now he's words leaking out that he's angry about the firings, but he's not under contract. The whole relationship with Arians and the Bucks post him winning a Super Bowl for them has been very odd.
And he put Bowles in position to win, knowing that a year prior to him stepping away, they won the Super Bowl. And they had the big comeback against the Rams. We know how that ended. The Rams kick a field goal in Tampa and win the game and go on to the NFC Championship game and send Arians packing, but by his own choosing. He worked out the remainder of his contract, which was this season, but just wasn't the head coach. And now, just going back to his quote, Chad, I control the narrative right now. I don't control it next February, because if Brady gets hurt, if we go 10-7 and it's an open interview for the job, I've got 31 coaches and their families that depend on me. My wife is big on not letting all those families down. And a year later, that's exactly what happened, except they didn't go 10-7. They went 8-9. And they cleaned house on offense, but also a couple of defensive assistants as well. It's what happens when you go 8-9 in a bad division. And you have Brady as your quarterback.
It's also what happens when you allow a guy who's a Super Bowl champion to get pushed out and somehow hang around your organization to just throw flames at everything that you do from that point on. Again, odd arrangement, odd separation between the two with Arians and the Bucs, and this is just another layer to that strangeness to me.